Hi, I'm Matthew Kelly, and welcome to Profoundly Human. My guest today is Jon Gordon. You're in for an astounding conversation. I've known Jon for a while now. I've loved his books, bumped into him in airports and at conferences, and just so delighted you could be with us, Jon. Thank you.
Matthew, great to be with you. I just finished Holy Moments and just love your book.
Well, I appreciate that. The first book of yours that I read was The Energy Bus, and 10 rules to fuel your life, work, and team with positive energy. What led you to write The Energy Bus?
That's such a great story. It was a tough story, but it's a great story in that years ago, I was miserable. I was negative, and my wife threatened to leave me because I lost my job during the dot-com crash, and I'm falling apart, I'm crumbling, and I'm being all negative, and I'm blaming her for why I'm not living up to my dreams. Like it was her fault. And I'm constantly attacking her in a negative way. And she said, I love you, but if you don't change, like we're over. She's an Irish Catholic girl. She's tough. She broke her brother's nose. I didn't want to mess with her. I'm like, all right, I need to change. And in all seriousness, I wanted to be a better husband. I wanted to be a better father. And I didn't want to lose my wife because she was literally ready to leave me. And so I remember thinking, why am I so miserable? Why am I here? What am I meant to do? And writing and speaking came to me in that moment. I'm 31 years old. And I said, okay, I'm going to be, more positive. Let me research ways I could be more positive. And that was during the emerging field of positive psychology. So now I'm practicing like all these different ideas and I'm seeing an impact. Like one was a gratitude walk. And I would walk and practice gratitude. And while I'm doing that, I'm flooding my brain and body with these positive emotions that uplift me rather than stress hormones that slowly drain me and over time will slowly kill me. And just doing that day in and day out, I started to see an impact. Well, doing that day in and day out and seeing an impact and making a difference in my own life, I started a weekly positive tip. And I started sharing that out, the things I was doing. 5 subscribers, my mother, my brother, best friend from college. And that led people to read my stuff and start asking for more. And I remember walking one day and the energy bus came to me. Literally, the story came to me. And it's about a main character who's miserable and negative. His team at work is in disarray. He has problems at home. So the main character, George, was based on me. So that's what led me to writing the book. It was my own journey of negativity towards positivity. I wanted to help other people reclaim their life, live their purpose, live with more optimism and belief, overcome the negativity. And then I wrote this book about this guy. And again, 3.5 weeks of divine inspiration of writing this book, rejected by over 30 publishers. Eventually it gets taken on by John Wiley and Sons, and the rest is history. But I wrote it because I realized my whole journey has been someone who wants to get better himself.
Yeah.
And be more positive himself. And then in that journey, I then want to help others get better and equip them.
Let's talk about a couple of the 10 rules. Number one is you're the driver of the bus. What does it mean?
Yeah, you have to take the wheel. You have to decide that, I decide the kind of energy I'm going to bring to my life. The greatest power you have is the power to choose. And you can choose positive energy or negative energy. When negative thoughts come in, you can choose positive thoughts. So being the driver means that you're not going to be a victim to life. You're not going to be a victim to your circumstances. We're all going to have challenges. We all go through tough stuff. And I understand that some people go through a lot tougher things than most. So there are people who really deal with trauma and really difficult experiences. So I'm not minimizing that. But I am saying that in those circumstances, on the journey of life, we do have the power to overcome, to rise above. And even though the circumstances are challenging and difficult, we don't have to allow them to define us. We take the wheel. And then on this journey of life, we start to bring more power to our life. And that allows us to create the life we want.
Love it. Number 3 is fuel your ride with positive energy.
Yeah. If you don't have it, you can't share it. And it's so interesting. In today's world, people think, oh, positivity. Some people roll their eyes, Pollyanna positive. They talk about if you're being positive, it's like it's toxic positivity. Think about it, Matthew. We live in a world now where it's almost normal to be depressed and negative and miserable and chronically worried and stressed all the time.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to go through life that way. It's been that way for a while now, but we're not meant to go through life that way. It's becoming normalized. And I think it's okay to feel that way because we all go through struggles and challenges. And I'm someone who's dealt with depression, but understand the real state, how you're meant to go through life, is with peace and joy and power and optimism and belief. And as a
Mm,
man thinks, he becomes. As a woman
mm,
thinks, she becomes. So you got to fuel yourself in order to feed others. Because if you don't have it, you can't share it. I often say leadership is a transfer of belief. So you're leading your kids, you're leading your team at work, you're leading your organization. You got to make sure that you're fueling your ride to be able to fuel your passengers on this journey. And as I wrote in The One Truth, the brain, what I realized years later, is an antenna. So we're either tuning into the positive or the negative every single day. And if you're tuning into the negative, you're going to get a lot more negative thoughts. And what do
yes.
negative thoughts do? They bring you down. What do positive thoughts do? They uplift you.
Yeah.
They encourage you. I've never heard anyone say, I need more negative thoughts to be successful. We all need more positive, optimistic thoughts. And that's what this is all about. So those who roll their eyes, those who don't think it's real, it's not about ignoring reality. It's okay to say this is hard, this is difficult, this stinks. But it's about maintaining optimism, belief in order to create a better reality.
Yeah. So let's talk about number 5. We're not going to talk about all 10. People can buy the book and read all 10, but let's talk about number 5. And what I've noticed with number 5 is good people struggle with number 5. Number 5 is don't waste your energy on those who don't get on your bus.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
As you're leading the way, not everyone is going to get on. What happens is we're driving our bus forward. We have our vision. We have our mission. We have people along the way that don't believe in our vision. They don't want to get on, or perhaps they're negative. Perhaps they think you're not going to be successful. And so often what happens is we worry about those people. We allow their being a naysayer to affect us. We allow their doubt to create more doubt in us. And the key is, no, you can't worry about those who don't get in your bus. You got to keep on moving forward. Don't waste your energy on those who are not getting on. Keep on asking more people to get on. When the energy bus came out, again, well, first it was rejected by 30 publishers, and then it comes out, bookstores wouldn't carry it. And then a lot of times there were negative reviews early on because people really didn't get the message. I couldn't worry about those who didn't get on. What I did was I kept driving. I kept sharing the message. I kept talking about it. And eventually more and more people got on it and found its audience. Same thing if you're a rock band, you're playing these little venues and people are finding you and loving your stuff and other people aren't. Eventually you gain your audience. Same thing with a product, same thing with a company. You're starting out. Not everyone's going to love your product. Not everyone's going to buy into your vision. So you have to make sure you keep asking more and more to get on. And then what happens is that optimism, the belief, the vision, asking people to get on, eventually you have a standing room only bus. But if you stay worried on those who don't get on, you don't have the energy to move forward and get more people on. And this allows you to create success when you understand this rule.
That's awesome. Let's move on to training camp. What the best do better than everyone else. How did that book come about?
This is probably my favorite book I've written. People say, do you really have a favorite? Yes, I think this one is my favorite. Just the story, and the main character has to overcome his fear and find his faith to be all that he's meant to be. And it's really autobiographical because I had so much fear, so much doubt, and I had to find faith on my journey to become who I was meant to be. So that main character was in many ways a lot like me. And so it came about was I just spoke to the Atlanta Falcons during training camp, and I'm in the car going to the airport, and boom, eureka, it hits me. Training camp, a story about a coach and a player, a mentor, and a mentee. And that coach is going to teach this player the winning habits that separate the best from the rest, what the best do better. And he's going to separate himself by becoming the best he can be and stand out in a world of average. And as he does, though, he has to find his faith on the journey. So that happens later in the book. And then it's also the impact that this coach can have and the legacy we can leave. So a main lesson in this book is leaving your legacy. So you might see yourself in the main character, also in Coach Ken, the character who's the mentor. And I just love that book. I just gave a talk recently to 300 CEOs of credit unions on training camp. Like, this is a book I wrote in 2008, 2009, and they wanted me to talk on what the best do better. I tied it into the positive leadership and explained some leadership principles with the best do better. But it was a lot of fun to talk about. Damian Lillard had read that book twice before his rookie season, the NBA, to remind himself how hard he would have to work. And I just love hearing from all these different athletes and coaches that have read this book over the years, and some of the biggest names in sports read that book, and it really encouraged them. So for me, I'm so glad I wrote it.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about just a couple of the 9 traits that make up the best of the best. Number 1 is want it more. I think a lot of people who are trapped in mediocrity or have sold out to just being average, they will say, oh no, I really want it bad. Talk about the first trait and wanting it more, and what does it really mean?
Yeah, you have to want it more to be your best and to strive towards greatness. It's not just in the wanting, though. We often say we have the desire, as you just said, but that desire is actually demonstrated in action. What are you doing to want it more? You want to write a book? Well, guess what? Get up in the morning and write that book. What does it look like? In my book, The Carpenter, I talk about being a craftsman instead of a carpenter. It's about showing up, not just going through the motions, but you're here to build greatness. You're here to be different, to do amazing, incredible work. And that only is the result of actually the actions you take. I once had this writer, Wright Thompson. He's a famous writer for Sports Illustrated, I believe. No, ESPN, the magazine, and has done some great work on Tiger Woods and did some things on Sports Center. He was doing a story on Dabo Swinney. And he knows that I worked with Dabo Swinney for 12 years. So as he's writing this story, he reaches out to me because he finds out Dabo reads my books. So you know what this author does, this writer? He reads every one of my books before the interview, because he wanted to think, what is Dabo thinking? What is he getting from these books that is affecting his thinking and being the coach that he is? He wanted to get in his mind. So he read all my books that Dabo has read. That was wild to me. Like, that's a craftsman. That's wanting it more.
Yes.
That's going above and beyond. How many of us do that? Now, you don't have to do that much, but you do have to go above and beyond and actually not always do extraordinary things, but be consistent, committed, focused, and doing the little things every day that demonstrate that you want it more by taking those simple actions.
Yeah. It's awesome. Let's talk about number 5. Have clarity of their vision and purpose.
Yeah, you got to have clarity of vision and purpose. Clarity leads to focus actions. I know you talk about this. This is the greatest gift that leaders could have and give their teams and organizations. Clarity of vision and mission, clarity of values, clarity of behaviors and habits. Like, why are we here? And what are we meant to do? Where are we going as an organization? Also, how do we become great? What is your role and your job every day? And what are you meant to do? When people show up to work, they know what they're meant to do. That's going to give them clarity. It gives them focus and allows for productive action. So you got to know what you want. Big part of this is training camp is knowing what you want. You have to want it more. And that's the clarity of, I want it more. I know what I want. And then I'm willing to do it. And the vision and mission that's powering me as I move forward, that's going to keep me alive as I face all the adversity and challenges and obstacles along the way.
What stops people from getting clear?
Clutter. So we want to be clear, but we have all this clutter. We have distractions, and distractions are the enemy of greatness. So I would say the 5 Ds that I wrote about in the garden and also in One Truth. You got doubt, you got distortions, which are negative thoughts and lies that are always coming in. You got discouragement, distractions, and then you have division, you have anxiety. And so we're so busy doing all these things that don't matter instead of what does matter. I love the quote that says, if the devil won't make you bad, he'll make you busy. He'll get you to focus on all the things that don't matter instead of what does matter. And so then we have this clarity, and we don't spend time thinking and reflecting. I take a walk almost every morning. And while I'm walking, I practice gratitude and I pray. And from that moment, I get a lot of clarity and ideas. Like, the clarity is not coming from me. I'm not that smart. I'm not that good. I'm becoming a vessel. I'm an antenna that is tuning in and then receiving the clarity of what I'm meant to do. No joke, Matthew. I went to the bathroom. We were in a team meeting and we were doing this new program where we're certifying trainers and leadership, team building. And we're really having these two programs, but they're separate programs. And I go to the bathroom, I come out, and boom, I had this eureka moment. I walk back into the meeting with the team. I go, hey, we're not doing any of this. Like, we were there to have this big meeting and all of it. We're changing. We're creating 3-in-1 mindset, leadership, and teamwork. It's going to be one certification, one main program, and 3 separate individual programs they can do. And that's what we're going forward with. I had like the vision, the clarity came in that exact moment. And I'm like, that's what we're doing. Again, it was only because I was open to it. And I don't think we take enough time to actually just to reflect and sit and be silent and to hear and to receive.
Powerful. Let's talk about this. The one truth, your latest and maybe your greatest. It's I'm hearing great things out there. What have you heard as feedback from the book that has surprised you?
You know, it is my best book, no doubt about it. I knew it when I was writing it. The feedback I'm getting, people are like, this is the best book you've ever written. I think it's the most important book I've ever written. So I'm getting that kind of feedback. People are surprised of where I went with it. They're so used to me speaking about positivity and positive teams that this was a whole other level of thinking in terms of science, psychology, bringing in some ancient truths that are biblical truths. And really, I combine it all because the truth you will find everywhere.
Yeah.
And I believe the truth is already written in our hearts, in our minds, in our souls. So we already know the truth. But when you read it, it resonates with you because you know it. And so now you read it, you hear it, and then it's like, oh, I know that. So for me, it's more remembering, like this book should be a remembrance than something that you're learning. So I love what people are saying, like, wow, like I'm getting this like, oh yeah, I knew, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. But you might not have thought about it unless you just read this, but it makes sense. Like I say, the brain is an antenna in the book. People go, yeah, of course. Well, no one's ever said that before, really, that the brain's an antenna. So by saying it and people go, yeah, of course. What's surprising me is how people are resonating with it. And I thought they were going to go, oh my God, like they're going to be like, this is unbelievable. Like it's blowing my mind, but it's almost like they're going, yeah, you brought it all together in a way that made me truly understand how the mind works, how our thoughts work, and how we can live with more power and joy and peace and less stress, anxiety, and worry. And what I love most is that, you know, I'm hearing from people that maybe normally wouldn't read a book like this, but they're reading it and they're saying how simple it is, even though it's profound, and how they're already going forward to try to do some things to change their life, like tuning into the positive. Like people are saying, okay, I'm going to now do things every day to tune into the positive instead of the negative, because I see the power of tuning into positive thoughts versus negative thoughts. You know, 2 frequencies, like everything in this world comes down to 2 frequencies. It's either a positive frequency or a negative frequency. And that's why we always say, oh, he's positive or she's positive or he's negative or that's negative, that's positive. That's why the battle is ultimately positive and negative going on in this world, because those are the 2 main frequencies. And when people understand that, everything makes so much more sense. Even the old Cherokee story of the 2 wolves, that's an ancient Cherokee story of the 2 wolves inside of us, positive and negative, and they fight all the time. Who wins the fight? The one you feed the most. Guess what? How are you feeding? Are you listening to the positive voice or the negative voice? That's a story of 2 frequencies. Truth, not biblical truth, but that is still truth and explains what we're going through and what the journey is all about. Positive versus negative, overcoming negative, feeding ourselves with the positive, and moving from separateness to oneness. And I would also say from the wounds that we have through our journey of life to healing and wholeness.
Powerful. One of the things I love about the book is that I believe it deals with a mega theme. You know, I think there's a lot of people who write about sort of minor themes or periphery issues or really niche topics. But there are some mega themes really consuming our culture at the moment. You defined it in a way that's probably different to the way it's been spoken about. But this mega theme of oneness and separation. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is like the main theme of the book. And you see separation everywhere. During the pandemic, we saw major separation, aloneness and isolation and disconnection. And then we see division now happening more than ever. How will you defeat someone? You divide them. What happens if a country is divided? They become defeated. And mentally, it's happening at the psychological level. We have all these negative thoughts coming in, creating separation. When you move from oneness to separateness, oneness is connection, separateness is disconnection. When you move from oneness to separateness, you move from positive to negative. All mental health disorders report feelings of being alone, isolated, disconnected, and separate. So if we see what's happening now in this world with all these mental health challenges, people are feeling more and more isolated and disconnected. And then you think about it and you look at the world and you see there's more fighting than ever. We have TV stations where one side says one thing, the other side says the other. We have politics that's all divisive. We have families that are being divided. What's happening? More and more separation, which leads to more and more anxiety. The root for the Greek word of anxious means to separate and divide. And so when you're anxious, you feel separate and divided. Like, Matthew, this is everything. What do negative thoughts do? They separate you, they divide you, they weaken you, and they make you feel powerless. That's a mega theme. That is separation. And then oneness is what? Health and wholeness and connection, and then power. So think of a team that's united and connected. They're a powerful team. They become one. A team that is separate and divided becomes a weak team. So the main theme is, how can we become one? One people, one body, one country with a shared vision and mission and purpose, where we see each other as human beings, as souls and spirit, but not color. We don't see race. We don't see political ideology. We see oneness. And how will the enemy beat us? By dividing us and separating us. Yeah. And that's happening more and more. So the key to everything, once you understand this, oneness and separateness, everything makes sense in the world, including traffic. You're driving in traffic, and guess what? You see the other person as the cause of your traffic. They see you as the cause of their traffic. So you're now seeing each other as the cause of each other's traffic, because you see each other as separate. Once you realize you're one, it's like that LA sign in Los Angeles that said, "You are the traffic." You realize we are all one, and we're all part of the same challenge, but we're all part of the same solution. So I give little nuances in terms of the married couple that starts taking walks together, and they become more connected. They start healing. You heal in a loving relationship. Why? Because you and the other person, love creates connection and oneness. Whereas if your relationship is very divided and you're not one, you become more and more separate. You feel more and more alone. And then you have a lot more negative thoughts and anxiety. During the pandemic, we saw this play out, where it was like this great experiment. And it really proved that human beings are not meant to be alone. I knew this was going to happen. We are meant for relationship. And you write a lot about this. We're meant for oneness and for connection to our creator and to each other. And I would argue that if you're not connected to your creator, you're going to seek out that connection. And a lot of people seek it out in good ways. But if you don't feel connected, there's this oneness and separateness, and there's a gap when there's separateness. And in the gap, what happens is, when you don't feel that connection to your creator, you start to fill the gap with all these substitutes. And many of them are cheap substitutes. And you're seeking like this feeling, but what you go for is relief instead of restoration. You go for the drink. You go for the video game. You go for the pornography. You go for any addiction. You're going for something because you're really seeking this euphoria that you could only get from this oneness and connection. And so just as like the tree must grow in the soil and the fish swims in water, we are healthiest and whole. We are meant to thrive by being connected to our creator. And if you're not, you're always seeking that connection. So like the other day, I was talking to this person, and I get this a lot lately. Oh, I'm feeling really disconnected. Yeah, I'm struggling. I have all these negative thoughts. Like, I got a lot of fear right now, a lot of anxiety. I said to him, I bet you feel really far from God. Like, you probably were connected at one time and you don't feel really connected anymore. And they're like, yeah, how'd you know? I said, because if you were connected, you wouldn't be feeling those feelings. You would be feeling joy and peace and love. And you would be feeling confidence and courage. So how you're feeling is a symptom. Am I one or am I separate? And that will play out in every aspect of your life, your teamwork, your relationships, your kids, your thoughts, your mental health, every aspect. And that's what the one truth is all about.
You mentioned, negativity and people's negativity and the impact that it has on them. One of the things I love in the book is you talk about, and I love the phrase itself, neutralize the negativity.
Yeah. Tune.
Someone who's listening right now and thinking, this is great. This is what I need. Where do I start? Where would you encourage them to start if they want to neutralize the negativity?
Yeah. Free resource, from the One Truth. Go to Get One Truth. You can download the Tune acronym. It's just a 2-pager thing that you can start putting into practice today. Trust in truth, right? Start trusting instead of doubting, and then bring truth to your life. Start reading the truth, knowing the truth, that you're here for a reason, that you're not an accident, that there's a plan for your life, that you have a purpose. And the truth is, you want to do great things because deep down, God put that greatness within you. It's within your spiritual DNA to want to do something great. We just have these voices that say we're not great. And then the you is unite with love. The more you bring love to it, love casts out fear. So anytime you feel fearful, you start bringing love to it and the fear will dissipate. And neutralize the negativity. That's what you said. You got to neutralize it. I love how, it's so simple when you think about this. Matthew, I had this friend for a long time, and he was one of the first guys who helped me when I started speaking, would sell my events and so forth, and haven't seen him a lot lately. I was on the beach today, and all of a sudden he's walking behind me, and he's walking with his wife. And he's like, Jon, he's like, I'm so glad to see you, man. I am struggling right now. I got so many negative thoughts. I am just really feeling down. And he didn't read the One Truth yet. And I walked with on the beach with his wife and taught him this tune literally on the walk on the beach. When we're done, I just got a text from him saying, wow, like what a divine moment seeing you teaching me this. I finally feel like I have hope now to neutralize the negativity. See, people think their negative thoughts are from them. And when the negative thought comes in, they believe the lie. They then reinforce it. They start speaking it out loud. Then they feel guilt and shame for the thoughts they have, and they beat themselves up. So this happened with a 16-year-old kid as well that I wrote about in the book. And once I taught him this, he no longer beat himself up. He realized, oh, I have these negative thoughts, but they're not coming from me. They're coming in. But I don't have to believe the lies. And I can tune in every day to the positive, neutralize the negativity, and I can talk to myself instead of listen to myself. This is the key. Don't listen to the negative thoughts. Talk to yourself with words of encouragement, words of life. Again, as a man thinks, he becomes. As a woman thinks, she becomes. Start thinking the thoughts that will elevate your thinking. And that's the E. Elevate your thinking day in and day out with prayer, with self-talk, based in truth. Scripture is a powerful thing to be repeating each day. I can do all great things through Christ who strengthens me. Another one is, he who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him. We're advised to take every thought captive. Like the prescription is there. So I write this book and then I go back and started looking at some of the New Testament. I'm like, oh, this was said, this was said, this was said. Oh, it's actually a prescription on how to neutralize the negativity and elevate our thinking. Why? So we can tune into the positive and moving to a higher state to experience more oneness instead of the separateness. Because fear divides, love unites. And so tune into the positive to unite. So yeah, neutralizing the negativity is everything. And as I wrote in the energy bus, back to that circle moment, no energy vampires allowed. Those negative people will suck the life out of you. So your positivity, faith and belief must be greater than all the negativity you experience.
So interestingly, next I was going to ask you about elevate your thinking, but when you think about this concept that you wrote about in the book, one of the things that struck me is that most of the content that people are consuming in society today is toxic. It's atrocious. And most of the content that they're consuming is absolutely destructive to them and undermines almost everything you're talking about. So when we talk about elevating your thinking, What is the role that content plays in that? And how do you encourage people to be more discerning about the content they're consuming?
Yeah. Does this uplift you or does this bring you down? Does this raise your level of thinking and your energy, or does it bring you down? Everything has a frequency to it. This is an energetic reality we're living in. And people say, oh, can you believe in God and still believe in an energetic reality? Yes, because God created this world, and the way he created it was with this energy experience, this energetic frequency that we're experiencing. It's God's makeup and design of how he designed everything. Within us is our soul and our spirit. But the brain literally has 86 billion neurons in the brain. Each neuron has a transmitter and receiver on the neurons. So the way we're designed, we have these neurons allowing us to experience this energetic reality, but within us, the essence is the spirit and the soul that is living and expressing itself in this reality. And I do believe that when we die, our spirit, our soul is the eternal part of us that lives on. And this meat suit that is all energy, what does it do? It turns to dust. Think about that. You turn to dust. And so when you die, what are you investing your time in? And what are you investing within yourself? Because what lasts is the soul. So are you nourishing what is temporary or what is eternal? And Jesus talked about this. He gave us the prescription. He tells us how to do it. And he said, focus on the soul. Focus on what is eternal, not what is temporary. Store your treasures in heaven, not what is going to be attacked and destroyed by moths. And so for me, it's about love and essence and joy and purpose and your connection and love with others and your connection and love to God. And don't tune into all the things that destroy you. And a lot of those things seem harmless, but over time, they take a toll on you. So on our playlist, like if you have that playlist in your car or on your iPhone or your music selections, we get this playlist, and most of our playlists actually tune into the negative, not the positive. We got to change the playlist because it's so easy to go towards the negative. We've got to tune into that positive and change the playlist. So what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you thinking? And again, I'm not saying don't watch a scary movie. I'm not saying don't watch a movie. Like I'm not a big fanatic on like, oh, I can't watch things with curse words or all stuff like that. But if that's predominantly what you're taking in, what you take in, you become. And so if that thought process you're taking in, if that movie becomes a part of it, you're ingraining all these things into you and your mindset. All of that will be what you now think about. And if you start changing your thinking, as you know, you change your life. I do have to tell you my wife's story about elevating your thinking, because I think this will relate to a lot of people. 8 months ago, she was being really negative, and she's drinking and she's feeling down a lot and she's not working out and she's getting all negative. And this is what she says: I'm getting old. I'm tired all the time. My body is sore. It's breaking down. I'm not going to be like I was when I was younger. I should just give up. This is hopeless. She's saying that over and over again. I said, honey, like, what are you doing? Why are you thinking this way? You're tuning into the negative. I go away to a speaking engagement. I come back 2 days later. She's like a different person. She's all energetic. She's all happy. She's light and free. I'm like, okay. I was like, what's going on here? Did you find a boyfriend or something? She goes, no, I had that call with the health coach and they did my testing, blood work, DNA, genes, like this new intensive testing they do. They told her this is really rare. We don't see this often. You have the genes of an Olympic athlete, is what they told her. So now she's walking around going, I am an Olympic athlete. I am an Olympic athlete. You want to play tennis tomorrow? I will crush you because I'm an Olympic athlete. Here she is thinking completely different. Matthew, I kid you not. The pain goes away. Yeah. The soreness goes away. She stops drinking.
Yeah.
She starts working out. Here we are 8 months later. She looks better than she ever has. We've been together 26 years. She looks amazing. She's now tuning into thinking the positive. She's connecting to God more. She's reading scripture. She's fueling herself with those thoughts and those words. Again, your brain is an antenna. Are we nourishing the antenna with positive words of life and encouragement? Again, it's an energetic antenna, like a plant. Are we nourishing the plant, or are we actually feeding it with destructive negative energy that actually causes it to wilt? What are you feeding the antenna? And every day, right, you're causing the antenna to go to a lower frequency or higher frequency. When you nourish it with God's word, I'm convinced of this. I can't wait if science tests this in the future. I want science to be able to test people who pray every day and do a regular basis for like a year, because it's going to take it's going to take time to watch it affect. But you can say a month. Let's test it after 3 months, 6 months. Every day you tune into the positive, God's word and prayer. What will happen? I guarantee you start to tune into more and more positive thoughts. Because what happens is that's the renewal of the mind and the soul, which then heals the brain, and you'll start to have a different antenna that starts to tune into more of that mind and soul, positive, higher level thinking. And then on the other side, right, are you tuning into the negative each day? I guarantee if we test that, and you can just see it play out in the world, the more people are tuning into negative thoughts, negative shows, negative movies, negative thinking, and then also feed that brain with poor foods and things that are not from nature and chemicals and all the stuff that affect the brain, then you tune into a more and more negative frequency and a lot more negative thoughts. And then you get this spiral of negativity that takes you on a spiral downward. And you know what, Matthew? This is truth. Romans 8:5-6. A mind governed by the flesh leads to death. A mind governed by the spirit leads to life and peace. It's as simple as that. What am I tuning into every day? Positive spirit, or the things of this world that may seem appealing. It may seem fun. The drink is harmless. And then you start doing it more and more and more. Cannabis, right? I'm smoking cannabis. I talk to a lot of people. I say, I bet you feel down after a few days of doing it. I bet you start questioning your purpose. I bet you experience more negative thoughts after a few days. Yeah, of course. You damage the antenna, you start to get more negative thoughts. This is the correlation between mental health and thoughts and brain that people really haven't put together. They say, oh yeah, like we got to have good brain health to have good mental health. But why? Why does someone, when they have a mental health disorder, have more negative thoughts even in the first place? Why does it lead to more negative thoughts? It's because of what you're tuning into.
All right, let's have a lightning round. I'm going to give you some topics. Give me one thought on each of these. Someone out there who hates their job, what would you say to them?
Change your attitude about your job, or as Zig Ziglar said, change your job.
Excellent.
Use it as a opportunity to decide, what do I truly, truly want? So is it really the job, or can you find the purpose and the meaning and the mission in the mundane of what you're doing every day? And so maybe it's not the job, maybe it's your attitude about the job.
What about a leader who wants to be a better leader?
A better leader, you have to make sure that you're feeding yourself to feed others. Leadership is a transfer of belief. And so as you believe, you then help your team believe. But also, to be a better leader, you do have to care about others. You can't be selfish. You have to be selfless. And a narcissist will never be a great leader. Maya Angelou said, you can't be a great leader if all you see is yourself. And I explained that in The One Truth, as well as why narcissists, they believe they're separate because they've been injured. They've had some traumatic thing of their past. So there's actually a neurological separation that happens within the brain that causes them to focus on self instead of others. What caused you to focus on others to be a great leader? Humility, care, empathy, integrity, optimism, belief. And when you believe in others more than they believe in themselves, they will do things beyond the extraordinary.
Yeah. What about a couple that wants to have a better marriage?
Take the time to connect. You'll never have commitment without connection. So you have to make sure that you're taking the time to connect and build that oneness together. And Gallup did a study. 99% of couples who pray together stay together. 50% who go to church stay together. 50%. That's the same level as unchurched versus church. So it's not the act of going to church, although I do believe it's great to have, a religious tradition and a fellowship and community. So I'm a big believer in that. But what really keeps you together is praying together. Why? You are spirit, your spouse's spirit, God is spirit. When you're praying, you all become one spirit. And in that is when the healing takes place.
What about someone struggling with addiction?
Recognize what's happening. You're feeling separate. So you're trying to fill the gap with a cheap substitute that gives you relief, but not restoration. So start moving towards restoration. And then as you do this, what happens is what you realize is community gets you away from self and moves you towards connection. Relationships with others, you start to heal in a loving relationship. That's essential. Start feeding and filling that hole with positive, uplifting things that make you feel more whole, rather than the things that seem appealing that actually create further and further separation for you. And then obviously addiction programs are very powerful, and they work because they connect you to that higher power, which is essential. But always remember, the higher power can't be a stranger, because if you heal in a loving relationship, you don't heal with a stranger. It has to be a personal relationship. And God is a God of love and forgiveness. And as you receive that love and forgiveness, that's when healing really takes place.
Fantastic. My guest is Jon Gordon. Jon, amazing to be with you. Thank you so much for sharing this. So many people are going to benefit from it. I hope we can do it again soon.
Matthew, I appreciate you, and just love you, love your work, and just love everything that you stand for. And this was such an honor to be with you and to be able to speak life into your audience.
Thank you so much.